Good morning. I'd like to call this Tuesday, December 19th regular meeting of the Board of Lane County Commissioners to order. We are doing business here, so please can we have some... Good morning. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to order. Thanks for coming in this morning. It's been a big week for Lane County. Tonight, the Egan Warming Centers will likely be activated, and Lane County will be using the Wheeler Pavilion as an overflow for the Egan Warming Centers. I'd like to thank the responsiveness of the county for that. Yesterday was the anniversary of Tom Egan's untimely death on the streets of Lane County of Eugene. Tom froze to death. Tom was suffering from substance abuse and died 8 years ago, 2 nights ago, and 8 years. And Tom and I served together in the Army and the National Guard. I had a chance to talk about him a little bit tomorrow. And you know, Tom would not want to be remembered in this way. However, Tom would be proud to know that people are acting in ways that otherwise they may not have acted should Tom not have prompted them to do so. So I talked with my friends who served with me and with then Lieutenant Egan, and everybody feels the same way about Tom. We miss him dearly. Tom was a great man, good officer, cavalry officer, and I'll talk more about that as the meeting progresses. Mr. Mokrajewski, the first thing we have on the agenda today is a public hearing, Order and Resolution 1712-1901, in the matter of adopting the fiscal year 17-18 Supplemental Budget Number 2, making, reducing, and transferring appropriations. And today, Mr. Mokrajewski, we have Mr. John Mosby with us. And I'll mention, anybody watching online or watching on TV, if you click View Material on today's agenda, you'll get the entire documentation of what Mr. Mosby is describing, in fact, far beyond that. So, Mr. Mokrajewski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we do these supplemental budget adjustments a few times a year. And as the board is well aware, we propose and adopt a budget annually in June. The Board of Commissioners adopts the budget in June of each year to take effect July 1st through June 30th of the following year. And so then we make these, we have these supplemental budgets that come forward to make adjustments throughout the course of the year as revenue or expenses may change. So Mr. Mosby is here today, our senior management analyst, to walk through the changes being proposed in this supplemental.
So good morning. This is the second supplemental budget for the fiscal year, as you mentioned. It is the largest of the supplementals, likely, as it contains adjustments to fund balances for virtually every fund. This happens after the financial audit has confirmed prior year ending fund balances. So we are required to hold a public hearing, as we have 7 funds changing by more than 10%. Those are all listed in the agenda memo, and they are the Parks and Open Spaces Fund, the Special Obligation Bond Retirement Fund, the Lane Event Center Fund, the Solid Waste Disposal Fund, the Corrections Commissary Fund, the Motor and Equipment Pool Fund, and the Technology Replacement Fund. So the reason for the change in all but one of these funds is the fund balance adjustment. The exception to that is the Special Obligation Bond Retirement Fund. The change in that fund is due to debt refinancing. Some additional detail about this supplemental: it contains items that have been previously approved by the board, such as salary adjustments due to labor agreements, as well as non-represented employee compensation adjustments. Total FTE change is 17.52, and total budget adjustment is $33,299,052.
Thank you, Ms. Mosby. Questions or comments before I open the public hearing? I see none. This is a routine supplemental budget that we're working on today with lots of different funds that we're talking about. So at this point, I will open the public hearing on the Order and Resolution 1712-1901, which is in the matter of adopting the fiscal year 17-18 supplemental budget. I see no one signed up for the public hearing. If anyone wishes to make testimony regarding the supplemental budget, you can step forward at this time. State your name and address for the record. I see none. Questions or comments or responses during the public comment period, public hearing? I see none. I'll close the public hearing. At this point, I will mention that Vice Chair Bozovich is out of town, excused, absent today. We're operating with four commissioners, which is a quorum, and I will be calling on Commissioner Lycan to make motions. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to move approval Order and Resolution 17-12-19-01 in the matter of adopting the FY 17-18 Supplemental Budget Number 2, making, reducing, and transferring appropriations.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Williams. Discussion to the motion.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quickly, because Mr. Mosby had mentioned that our last Finance and Audit Committee meeting that the Finance and Audit Committee met with our financial auditors and have put forth a clean audit of Lane County. So I just want to mention that, as Mr. Mosby had mentioned it as well during his presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. Commissioner Sorensen.
Is there any change in the salary for the independent auditor? I know that position's been vacant for quite a while, and part of the reason is because of the salary. Is there any plan to put more money into that, or maybe Mr. Mokryski could answer?
Yeah,
I believe that Commissioner Sorensen is referring to the performance auditor.
Right, our internal performance auditor position that became vacant last summer when Shanda Miller left to pursue other opportunities, and that position has been open. We've recruited the board on January 10th. I believe you have a work session on January 10th scheduled to interview 2 finalists that have already been interviewed by the the citizen members of the internal performance audit committee. So there is no adjustment to the salary and benefits for that position in this supplemental. I think the board desired, the internal audit committee and HR and the commissioners that have been involved, Commissioner Farr is on that internal audit committee, had desired to go through this process and see if we could be successful in finding a qualified, outstanding candidate to bring on board before we made adjustments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mokryski. And in fact, the Performance Audit Committee has met and reviewed the applicants. We'll be interviewing the applicants in January, as you mentioned. The discussion of salary has been a topic of discussion for the Performance Audit Committee, which is made up of citizen members and one commissioner liaison, which is me. So thank you for that update, Ms. Mokryski. Any further discussion? I will state that I was also in the Finance and Audit Committee meeting with you, Commissioner Lycan, when the audit was the external audits were done on our finances. And Mr. Mosby, you and your department had to feel pretty, let's see, vindicated in your work, I guess, with the type of review that they presented. They had a lot of superlatives and unprecedented statements. So congratulations on that work. Thank you for making Lane County as transparent financially as we possibly can be. Thank you. So we have before us Order 1712-1901, moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Williams. No further discussion to the motion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bozievich excused absent. Item 2 on our agenda. I'm going to take a second, Mr. Mokryski, to go through our agenda. We typically have adjustments to the agenda, then public comments, followed by Commissioner's response to public comments and or other issues and remonstrances. Now, item 4 on the agenda, which comes subsequent to public comments, is an opportunity for Commissioners to respond to public comments or to talk about other issues that may be percolating throughout the county or throughout the work that we do as individual Commissioners. So with that, we'll move into adjustments to the agenda. Mr. Mokryski.
Mr. Chair, based on our discussions this morning and the anticipation of a fair amount of public comment regarding the Ariel Spring issue, we've asked our Chief Legal Counsel, County Counsel Steve Dingle, and our County Clerk Cheryl Betchart to be present to provide information in advance of public comment so that we can make sure that we get the facts out there around this situation. And then they will also, they've been asked to stick around after, through public comment and until after public comment so that if there are any questions or additional information that comes up, they can respond to those as well, with an eye towards making sure that we have the best information on the table to discuss.
Thank you, Ms. Mokryski. While not unprecedented, this is a slight deviation from the way we normally do business, the way we normally conduct our business of agenda in the mornings. So what you're saying is that the county council and the county clerk will step forward prior to public comments to make a few statements, potentially in response to some of the emails that have been received. Is that or in?
So I believe some of the emails, as well as some of some media reports about actions related to the Ariel Spring initiative. So
Excellent.
we've asked them to be brief so that because we have a large number of the public here today, and we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak, but we also want to make sure that both the board and the public has access to as much information as possible in advance and after.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Mokryski. Then I'll ask Mr. Dingle to step forward. Is Ms. Betchart in the building or in the room? Ms. Betchart, so County Counsel and County Clerk.
Good morning, members of the board. I'll be brief. I've seen a couple of the emails, or a number of the emails that have been sent to the commissioners, and there's clearly a misunderstanding on the part of the people involved in this. The first thing to understand is that there are two different measures. I'll refer to one as the aerial spraying measure. That's one measure. Another measure is the community rights measure. In the emails, it's clear to me that folks involved in this are conflating the two as the same. And the reason it's important to keep them separate is they are in different stages of the process. You'll recall that last year, the county was involved in litigation involving the review of charter amendments. These are both proposed charter amendments for compliance with the separate vote requirement in ORS 203-725 sub 2. At that time, on March 9th, 2017, Judge Rasmussen issued a rather lengthy opinion which ordered the clerk to review proposed charter amendment proposals for compliance with the separate vote requirement when she was presented with a petition and had verified the requisite number of signatures and not before. His opinion literally says at the earliest point. So fast forward to this year, the first measure, the aerial spray measure, was initially presented to the clerk for verification of the signatures. I believe the first time, and Ms. Betchart can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that at the first attempt there was not the requisite number of signatures, so it was rejected. The petitioners went out, obtained additional signatures. Ms. Betchart reviewed and certified that there were the requisite number of signatures, triggering her obligation and my obligation under Judge Rasmussen's order to review that measure for compliance with the separate vote requirement. That was done. That decision is being appealed by the petitioners who are represented by Ms. Neeland, and Mr. Long, who you recall was involved in the original litigation, has intervened. That original decision by Judge Rasmussen is on appeal at the Court of Appeals. There has been, I'm not sure where it's come from, there is a feeling that the board has some role in this. The board has absolutely no role in this. This is being conducted to a binding order from a Lane County Circuit Court judge, which, because we're in Lane County, is binding upon us. That's the status of the aerial spray measure. Arguments are going to be heard by Judge Rasmussen on February 2nd at 1:30 in the afternoon on that appeal in his courtroom. The community rights measure is earlier in the process. I understand, and Ms. Betchart can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. The petition has been submitted to her for verification of the requisite number of signatures. If that occurs, the same review that occurred with the aerial spraying measure will take place. Depending on that review, I expect either, it doesn't matter what the decision is, one party, either the petitioners will appeal to circuit court or Mr. Long will appeal to circuit court. That's the current status of both of those. I want to emphasize, people in the emails keep referencing action by the board. There's nothing the board can do. This is pursuant to a state statute. It is Judge Rasmussen's interpretation of a state law, which he has found preempts local. Actually, that was part of his ruling. Actually preempts local action. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Dingle. Ms. Betchart, anything you'd like to add?
I just wanted to mention that on the aerial spraying, when that initiative petition was first submitted, it did have the required number of signatures to proceed with the signature verification process at the initial submission of those signatures. The Community for Self-Government did not, and then they now have subsequently turned in those additional signatures to allow us to proceed with signature verification, which we are currently doing at this time. So just for that clarification.
Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Betchart. Then just a quick interpretation perhaps. There's a binding order by Judge Rasmussen regarding a process that is in a legal process, a state statutory legal process that's in place right now. And as a board member, I cannot say stop. I mean, we've got a legal process that we're going through.
No, it's an yeah, that's correct, Chair. He interpreted a state law, which he said preempts, which means the county can't act on this particular issue. And as I said, he's a Lane County Circuit Court judge, and we're in Lane County, so it's a binding order to the clerk to conduct this review.
Okay. Can you say what I might have done that started this review and process, or is there anything
That you did?
The board did? No?
No.
Okay. It's an order by Judge Rasmussen. Do you have the date that binding order was issued? I'm putting you on the spot with a date, but I've heard the February 2nd at 1:30 date where there'll be a review.
So the decision was March 9th, 2017. That's when he issued his opinion and order. I think the order was actually dated a little time after that. And the hearing on the appeal is February 2nd, 2018 at 1:30 in the afternoon before Judge Rasmussen.
Thank you very much. Then at this point, we're going to entertain public comment. If there is a brief question by the board, our time for questioning would typically come after public comment, but since we're deviating from standard process a little bit, Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you. This will be the second question from the board, and that is, what is the length of time, Ms. Betchart, that you have to examine the community rights measure to determine how many signatures have been submitted?
Chair Farr, Commissioners, we have 15 days to do that, and they were submitted on the 12th of December, so we will complete our process no later than December 27th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. Any further questions for the clerk or for the council? I see none. Then at this point, we'll move along to item 3 on our agenda, which is public comment. It says it's an expected maximum time of 10 minutes for public comment. I think we'll waive that. But due to the number of people in the room, we're going to restrict public comment to 15 seconds per No, I'm kidding. You will have 3 minutes to speak. When your name is called, I'll call the name of the next speaker and the speaker subsequent to that. Please be prepared. Since there are a lot of folks in the room and everybody would like to hear everybody's testimony, please, when you hear the signal, conclude the thought that you're on as quickly as possible. That is within just a few seconds. That way we'll get the next person forward and get as many people to address the board as possible this morning. And I want to, Mr. Mokrajewski, thank you for bringing suggesting that Mr. Dingell and Ms. Betchart step forward to explain the legal process that we're in. So thank you very much. At this point, we'll move to public comment. I have 2 sheets, and I believe there is at least 1 more sheet.
Mr. Chair, I might suggest that the person next in line sit next to the podium so that we can minimize the time between speakers.
You think maybe that seat? Yeah. Okay. So the second name that I call, if you would step forward at about the same time, and you go ahead and utilize that seat that's stated for staff right there, or if you're not comfortable, just kind of stand in the wing. And I'll name 2 names at a time. Please state your name and address for the record. And you know, the protocol for Harris Hall during board meetings is we do not allow any cheerings, booing, hissing, hand waving, or sign carrying. So it's this is a public testimony that's going on in a public meeting. So please adhere to those rules. I thank you for doing that in advance. The first person that we have signed up today, and I'm going to ask for apologies if I cannot fully read the writing, correct my pronunciation of your name. The first one's easy. Rob Dickinson, followed by Victor Odlevek.
That's good enough.
Good. Thank you. And if you would sit right there, Mr. Odlevek. And 1 second before you get started, you will have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, I'm Rob Dickinson from 31755 Gowdyville Road in Cottage Grove. Chair Farr and Commissioners, yes, I'm Rob Dickinson, member of the group Freedom from Aerial Herbicides Alliance and a supporter of the initiative to ban the aerial spraying of herbicides in Lane County. We are here today to protest what we feel is unjust treatment by the county of the people of Lane County and a lack of good faith administration of the initiative process by the county. Hundreds of volunteers have put in literally thousands of hours of time over the span of 3 years. Many of these people have suffered the harmful effects of aerial spraying on their own health and their property due to this unjust practice that has been going on for over 40 years. The chief petitioners and the many people who have engaged in our campaign did everything that was expected of them in order to bring this issue before the broader public at an election. And yet here we are, after having submitted over 11,500 valid signatures to the county, being blocked from access to the ballot. The county claims that our initiative doesn't comply with the separate vote requirement, so let's have a look at that. First, let's be clear, this application of a separate vote requirement for county initiatives is completely unprecedented. Nowhere but Lane County has a local initiative been subjected to this treatment. In response to citizens, commissioners have responded that the county was ordered to apply this standard by Judge Rasmussen when he dismissed the Stan Long suit. This is not correct, and the judge did not, in fact, order the county to apply this standard. First, he dismissed the case, and there was no explicit order for the county to apply this. And it's all the more egregious that they are applying this standard now on an initiative that was already well underway and has been in circulation for over a year and a half at the time that this was done. In addition, the judge made clear that any requirements for separate vote is not self-executing for local initiatives. Unlike the single subject and full text rules, there are no procedures for how a county could even apply it. The judge made that clear. There is no procedure for notification or appeal and so forth. In this case, the county just made up these procedures as it went, and that is arguably unconstitutional. The key point here is that the county is moving the goalposts in the middle of the game, and that's patently unfair. But we're not here just to argue the law. We're here about accountability and transparency. The chief petitioners have repeatedly asked the county to provide its explanation as to why our initiative does not comply with this new separate vote test. And the county has done nothing but stonewall. The chief petitioners even filed public records requests to obtain whatever analysis the county did to come to this conclusion. And again, we've been given nothing substantive. We're not asking the county to support our initiative. It should, as the health of the people depend upon it. But all we're really asking is that the process be fair and that the most basic ingredient of fairness is transparency. Today, we are calling on the county to provide the chief petitioners the analysis of why it is denying our initiative the right to proceed. And I know that many of the people here are not comfortable speaking in public, so I'd like to ask those in the audience who agree and that our initiative to proceed to please stand up.
Please, no displays of this kind are allowed during county commission meetings, so thank you for your testimony. Next person is Victor Odlevec, followed by Michelle Holman. Michelle, if you would step forward, please.
My name is Victor Odlevec. I've been living 2 years here in Eugene, Lane County. My address is 1620 Lorraine Highway. I became aware of this beautiful group and the great work they do. I think it's really simple, and there's an awful lot of stuff here making stuff very complicated. Nobody in this room wants a helicopter to come and spray this awful Roundup in their face. This is the same stuff that happened, in Vietnam in the 60s. We certainly don't want to do it to ourselves. I think we all agree on that. Nobody wants that. And this separate rule, it's a lot of legal confusion, and that wasn't done on Initiative 97 or any other issue. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. If I go to the bathroom, I poop, I brush my teeth, I comb my hair, I'm done. I don't have to go 3 different occasions in there. That's how ridiculous it is, what we're doing with this. Just let it go. It was approved over a year and a half and 2 years ago to collect these petitions. We've worked very hard, 6 to 10 hours a week for over a year and a half, volunteer doing this. And let the voice of the people be heard. You can always vote against it if you want to inhale all that stuff. But anybody who is sitting up there and making all these theories, let the helicopter come down, let them breathe it. Just like the lead in the gasoline. Let them drink the lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Odlevec. Next is Michelle Holman, followed by Carol Scherer.
Michelle Holman, Deadwood Creek Road, Deadwood, Oregon. I represent Community Rights Lane County. I'm a member. While this may not be the forum as Attorney Council Dingle has said, we want to use this as a public forum to discuss what we think needs to be aired out in a public setting. The initiative system is how we, the people, legislate. As you're well aware, there are a myriad of steps to complete and qualify an initiative. It's not easy. It's not meant to be easy. It requires serious commitment and dedication to satisfy the process. The Freedom from Aerial Herbicide Spray Alliance, or FAHA, is a shining example of just that. In good faith, FAHA has complied with every requirement every step of the way. We, the people of Lane County, expect the same from the county gatekeepers. We demand it. We have the constitutional right to expect that the county officials will play by the same rules and not change those rules in the middle of the game. Today, we are protesting the stonewalling of the people's process because of the county council and the hearing that has been made by him. The people's process, specifically here, we, the people of Oregon and Lane County, view the initiative process as sacred. Our foreparents fought long and hard to create this method of lawmaking. Now we, including our county commissioners, have the responsibility to maintain the integrity of the people's right to legislate in this manner. As our elected officials, we're asking you to direct the county council to remove the unfair and unconstitutional barricades he has seen fit to impose, obstructing the people's initiative process as it applies today to the Freedom from Aerial Herbicide Spray ban. We implore you to play your assumed roles as elected representatives of the people of Lane County. Make clear the way for we, the people of Lane County, to exercise our constitutionally protected voice at the ballot box. As we have been faithful to the process all along, it is the voters of Lane County who have the right to decide if the spraying of toxic chemicals from helicopters in our forest lands continues on or is to be banned. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Holman. Carol Scherer, followed by Pam Driscoll.
I'm Carol Scherer. I live at 3245 Jayhawk Court in Eugene, Oregon. I'd like to put in proper context the position of the timber industry in our community and in our state. In 2016, only 1.9% of employment in Oregon was from the wood products industry. Employment in the wood products industry is not expected to grow, primarily because timber was overlogged for 25 years. It is a dying industry. Additionally, half of large industrial timber in Oregon is owned by Wall Street hedge funds, which cause harm to our environment because they want profits. It is not for a financial gain in Oregon. Oregon timber harvest tax is very low and much lower than in Washington and California. And unlike in Washington and California, the money that is raised does not go into our general fund. It goes to support the forest industry. It is taxed at 50 cents an acre, which is $.0001 on $1,000 real estate market value. It comes to about $10 million a year in Oregon. Oregon expects to have dynamic employment growth as a result of our amenities. Lane County ranks in the nation. Out of 3,111 counties, Lane County ranks in amenities number 177th. That is our future. That is how our employment is going to be a dynamic, growing experience. You should help us protect our amenities, our economy, our health, and work for the people. So when you have an option, rather to support the timber industry and the Wall Street hedge funds, you should consider that the value for people, for the environment, for clean air, for our clean water, is because of our amenities. And you should do everything you can to protect our health and the environment. The timber industry basically is failing in Oregon. It has no future. And to follow it, it will be like you are leading us into the road that the coal country was taken by a dying industry of the timber industry in Oregon. Please stop the blight.
Thank you, Ms. Scherer. Pam Driscoll will be followed by Tom Brown.
My name is Pam Driscoll. I live at 81394 Lost Creek Road in Dexter. 2 years ago, after Mount Zion was logged, aerial spraying sprayed my neighbor who was sick for 4 months with throat problems from drift from the aerial herbicide spraying. The Lane County Commissioners should be, even if it's not legal at this point, we expect you to stand up for us. Laws can be changed. Laws should be changed. The timber industry at the state level have way too much power. And I know a lot of you guys on the county commissioners are part of the ONC, Association of ONC Counties, which is basically a de facto lobbying group for the timber industry. So I hope you either change your ways or I hope you get boosted out of office. The will of the people is the only legitimate foundation of any government, and to protect its free expression should be our first object. I just got that off one of the tiles out front, and that's Thomas Jefferson, our president from 1801 to 1809. We expect you to be behind us, the will of the people, and we don't feel that way. So the rights of the local community self-government charter amendment says, what does the right of local community self-government ballot initiative do? Allows the citizens of Lane County to pass laws that strengthen and protect our health, safety, and welfare. It further protects our ability to do so by not allowing such rights to be interfered with by corporations and other governments. Can't we do that already? Not really. The current system of law and government favors corporate rights over those individuals, communities, and the natural world. Corporate interests often use their influence at state, federal, and international realms to override local interests. It's called preemption. We expect you to do what you're put in office to do, to be the voice of the people, and we are not feeling that way, and we haven't felt that way for a long, long time. So you guys either stand behind us or hide behind some state laws that protect the timber industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Driscoll. The next person signed up is Tom Brown, who will be followed by David Tweet, perhaps. Tom Brown.
Good morning. My name's Thomas Brown. I live at 4750 Franklin Boulevard. I believe I'm in Mr. Lyken's district. But it seems that the commissioners, the county and the commissioners are at odds with the voters of Lane County. The commissioners are resisting the issuing of a ballot measure to be voted on by the people of Lane County. The issue of aerial spraying should be decided by the voters who are affected by it. Out of curiosity, what's the purpose of the spraying? What are they spraying? Are they trying to eliminate Zika virus or West Nile, or is it a herbicide to knock down the natural undergrowth, or what's the purpose? Can you tell me? Do you know what they're spraying? What it is? One would think that the people's representatives would enact the will of the people of Lane County. Since that doesn't seem to be the case, it begs the question, who do you serve? It doesn't seem to be the voters of Lane County. Could it be that someone else has outbid the voters of Lane County? If each voter was to donate $1 to you, or $2 or $5, would you represent us? Is that what it's going to take? If not, perhaps there are some who will do our bidding. Is there anyone in the room that's running for county commissioner? Will you
Once
do our
again,
bidding?
please, there is no show of hands, no show of displays.
All right.
Commissioner Opp.
Will whoever it is that's running for Lane County do the bidding of the Lane County voters? Where am I? Then you have to vote, and we will have to vote you out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. The next person to signed up is
I do have my $5
David Tveet,
right now.
followed by Ravia Wagner. David Tveet, please.
So my name is David Tveit. I live at 801 Lynn Lane, River Road area of Lane County, and I'm with Community Rights Lane County also. We want transparency, accountability, and support for the Democratic Party from the Lane County government, and we're not getting it. We're not asking you to intervene in the initiative process. We're asking for transparency, accountability, and support for the democratic process. So back in June of 2016, 4 out of the 5 Lane County commissioners at the time voted to try to usurp the initiative process and democracy in Lane County by giving themselves an absolute veto power over which initiatives are allowed to proceed to the ballot. While this was dropped due to public backlash, 3 of you are still currently in office. This prior vote, along with Lane County's current treatment of the initiative process with our initiative to ban aerial herbicide spraying in Lane County, strongly indicates that Lane County is not providing good faith efforts for the people's lawmaking power with the initiative process, and instead is actively trying to impair it. Lane County arbitrarily chose to apply the separate vote requirement that Judge Rasmussen did not require to be applied. It is not binding. It was just arbitrarily applied. Further, we view the initiative as complying with the separate vote rule, and the county council, which is the county attorney, has totally lacked transparency and given us any reason for why he thinks it applies. Further, Judge Rasmussen stated that this separate vote rule has no legal enforcement ability, and lacking this, the county appears to have illegally taken procedural language from another statute and applied it to this one. This violates the separation of power and reeks of the county trying to subvert the democratic initiative process. Additionally, some past amendment proposals to the county charter, most of which have been done by the county commissioners, have clearly included distinct separate issues in the same amendment proposals. We will be looking at more of the ways in which Lane County has had multiple issues put in charter amendments and pointing those out. So the county has hugely lost our trust in believing in their support of democracy in Lane County. It is up to you as county commissioners to set the tone and culture here in our county for supporting our right to the democratic initiative process, and more broadly, democracy in Lane County. Currently, I believe you are failing badly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tveit. Bhavya Wagner. Hello, Bhavya.
Hello.
Followed by Jackie Travis.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bhavya Wagner. I live at 2160 Westwood in Eugene, and I'm speaking for myself. And as I see it, the issue of banning aerial spraying of herbicides has 3 layers. The first layer is the county now says this measure does not qualify for the ballot, but earlier the county said it was fine. But going deeper into this issue is a second layer, which there's 2 camps. In one camp, there's the pro-industry people, and the other camp are the environmental activists. We seem to keep getting stuck in this place, but I actually feel like we have a lot in common. And the third layer is at the core of the issue, and I think is a place where there are no sides, where everyone is equally affected. All of us know someone who has prematurely died from cancer. It may be a teenager with leukemia. It might be someone who has breast cancer. It might be your mother, your father, your wife, your daughter. The heartbreaking disease of Asperger's and autism. I'm sorry, this really affects me. Has increased 10 times in the last 40 years. Most of us that are over 60 are hoping we will not be getting Alzheimer's or dementia. These diseases affect everyone, whether you're pro-industry or environmental. The herbicides have been linked to all these diseases, and I have the documentation here. I'm here to ask you to allow the people of Lane County to vote on this measure. This is the greatness of American democracy. Please allow the citizens to vote.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. You can leave the testimony right on the desk there, and that'll get distributed and placed into the record. Thank you also for your ongoing work feeding the hungry people in Lane County. Next is Jackie Travis, followed by David Piccioni. You have 3 minutes, Ms. Travis, and the alarm will sound.
I will use them wisely.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you remove your. Please.
My name is Jackie Travis. I live at 1620 Grant, Eugene, and largely we silence nature and refuse to listen to her language. I'm here today as nature, the ground of all being and of all possibilities. I, as nature, fully am unable to speak unaided by these human words. As a human, I am fully part of nature and completely dependent upon her. I have turned the podium because I'm not just addressing you, I'm addressing the community at large. Am I plainly understood? Okay. I'm here as a human. I'm a part of nature, and I request of you as our representatives and you as our citizens to assist in ending the poisoning of the environment. We all depend entirely upon it. The soil, the air, the water, and time as it moves along in life. Ever abundant variety and beauty. A small beginning of that support would be to support this initiative to ban aerial spraying so that humans can begin to take more control over their lives and begin to make creativity and life more vibrant and possible moving forward, especially as it regards the humans. Finally, I request that you walk into the deep woods, sit beside those still flowing waters, and hear my voice.
Thank you, Ms. Travis. Next is David Piccioni, followed by Sabra Villa. I may need some assistance with the pronunciation. Mr. Piccioni, please step forward.
Hi, David Piccioni. Of the 4 million people that were exposed in Vietnam to Agent Orange, which is comprised in half by a very commonly used herbicide called 2,4-D, 3/4 of them, or 3 million, have very severe illnesses, including gene damage, leukemia, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and various cancers. As well, 12,000 square miles of forest have been decimated by this defoliant, and they're very hard to reconstruct. The test to find out whether a chemical is toxic is called LD50. It's a test used by industry, usually on animals, but it's being used on this population. So what this test is, the LD50 test, is how much of a certain chemical do you need to give a group of a population of subjects for half of them, 50%, to die. So should we use the population that we have here and this county as a subject for this experiment? No, I don't think so. I propose a different set of subjects. There's 5 county commissioners one county administrator, Steve Dingle, and Judge Rasmussen. If you guys want to find out how toxic that stuff is, you should try it on yourselves first. When 4 of you die, then we'll know how much it takes to kill us. And that'll be a fair experiment. Don't put it on us. You guys take it. And if we have rights, nature has rights, because we need nature to live. Without nature, we are dead. We are inseparable from nature. Peace.
Thank you, Mr. Paccioni. Sabra Villa, please help me with that. Will be followed by Bernadette Bourassa.
Jabrila Vaya.
Thank you.
It was a good try. I live at 89846 Poodle Creek Road in Notai. I'm at Wintergreen Farm. I've lived in the Coast Range for 40 years, and I've seen too many little babies' death. As I was giving birth to my own child, we were surrounded by herbicides. I've seen people sick. My own daughter, my sister got leukemia. Where does this all come from? I think everyone has spoken that. Well, I've also been farming organically for 40 years in the Coast Range. People come to me, to our farm, thousands, literally thousands. We go from Portland down to the South Coast. CSA boxes, farmers markets. They want organic food. They rely on us to grow this food. It's been my commitment for 40 years. Where does my water come from that I irrigate? I pour the water on the plants, on our good, biodynamic, organic soil. It comes from the headwaters of Poodle Creek. I ride my horse up there. I hike up there. I, too, am a lover of nature. They're spraying, herbicide spraying, spot spraying. It happens. It's not happening. How can I tell my customers, my people that rely on me for good organic food to say, there's no chemicals in here whatsoever? I tell them the truth. I tell them we do the best. We look at nature for our teacher. The headwaters come up there, and the people of this country are poisoning the water. I pray by the time it comes to us that we can give you clean water. It's vitally important. It's so important. We have to have clean water, protect our environment. People are asking. I speak for thousands and thousands of people that eat our vegetables and our beef. So I'm here to support the aerial spray ban initiative. There are enough signatures. There are enough people. Listen, it's important. Don't turn a deaf ear on this. I want my right to vote. We have a right to vote. I want it. I wrote to Commissioner Bozovich. I hope I said his name right. He answered part of my questions, but he had no answer for why has there been no explanation as to why the aerial spray ban initiative does not comply with the separate vote requirement. And my question is, why was it not brought up sooner? These are questions that you must answer. You have to find the answer for people. The people of this community have a right to know. There's over 11,500 signatures, I believe. I hope I'm right. There's probably more people that want to know. Please answer.
Thank you, Ms. Villa. Next is Bernadette Bourassa, followed by Neil Miller.
You got my name right. I'm Bernadette Bourassa. I'm here partially representing the Pacific Green Party, People, Planet, and Peace over profit. I'm also representing my husband, Zeph Van Allen, one of the owners of Down to Earth Distributors Incorporated. They have a local retail store, but they also have a national distribution component to their company, which operates out of a rather large warehouse in the Glenwood area. Their corporate offices are there, and their manufacturing facility is there. It's the manufacturing of organic fertilizers that's the most rapidly expanding part of their business. They employ over 100 people. Last year, they took a bold step away from their 40-year practice of remaining outside of political issues. And they did this when they decided to allow the Coast Range forest people out of Coos Bay to table at their retail store on Earth Day. They worked with the local chapter of the Sierra Club on that endeavor. That was in response to the people's outcry to save the Elliott Forest. Then they got even a little bolder last summer, and my husband signed his company on to the growing list of local individuals and companies who support this aerial spray ban. They've never endorsed a ballot initiative before. I gave Michelle Holman a check this morning, and I vow to continue to supporting this effort to stop aerial spraying of herbicides. It may have seemed like a good idea at one time, an obvious choice even, but we evolve. You commissioners have the power to drag this process out, make people jump through some more hoops, but aerial spray will be banned. You can do it the easy way, or you can do it the hard way, and I should say we can do it the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. And I'd like to urge you all to move past the technical issues that we're addressing today and get to the heart of the matter. Let's do it the easy way. The aerial spraying of herbicides needs to be banned, and the sooner the better. So we should ask, how can I help? What can I do? This initiative addresses a big problem, as people have said. We're exposing people and animals and waterways and our land to being contaminated with carcinogens. I'm repeating because I'm not the first one up here today. There's a lot of cancer. It's touched most of us. And let's move on. Let's do the right thing.
Thank you, Ms. Barraza. Next person to speak, signed up to speak, is Neil Miller, who will be followed by Ellen Fersner. And I will mention that we have approximately 35 more people signed up to vote following Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller.
Good morning. Neil Miller, 29215 Fox Hollow Road, Eugene. The question's been raised, what are they spraying? And there has been very little attention given to this. I operate a network, an email network in our community and beyond, informing people of the notifications issued by the Oregon Department of Forestry, which lists the chemicals being sprayed, which has prompted a great deal of research on my part, which you do not have the time to do. But you will be astonished at what these companies are spraying, including what this one gentleman said, 2,4-D, which is a major component of Agent Orange, which they are spraying on the community and drifting onto crops that are organically raised, and the health of the community of Lane County in general is at stake here. We have both the resources and the determination to stop this aerial spraying and to inform the communities in each one of your districts during the next election as to what your position is on this issue. I hope that you will be aware of the implications here. We're playing with fire here. The time has come for this poisonous spraying to end.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ellen Fersner will be followed by Alan Bass.
My name is Ellen Fersner. I live in Marcola. I'm in Gary Williams' district, although I wonder if you could find Marcola on a map or even have ever has set foot in the town to meet with the people of the community. We, the people, that's us, not you. You work for we the people. We pay your salaries and your pay raises that you give yourselves with our taxes. It is a right of we the people to bring forth initiatives to be placed on the ballot if and when they qualify. The Freedom from Aerial Spraying of Herbicides Bill of Rights certainly qualifies with over 11,500 signatures. It is not a right of you, the board, to take away that right from us, to act like you know what is better for us, and to treat us like a bunch of little peons. It is certainly not a right of you to change the rules of the game, the rules of law, in the middle of the process. Most of us know that you, like most politicians, do not work for we, the people, but for corporations who are raping the earth, our earth, which we get our life from. You may laugh at that hippy-trippy shit now, but your time will come, or your children's or grandchildren's, that if we do not turn things around real fast right now, we will be gasping our last breath for want of clean air. Just to remind you, we the people comes from the preamble to the Constitution. This is an introduction which states, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, blah, blah, promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. It is my take that our responsibility, and yours also, for the general welfare is to make sure that we have clean air, which we the people are doing with this ballot measure. Secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, meaning future generations, and to me means leaving them air they can actually breathe without getting sick or dying. Things are changing. We the people are waking up, more and more of us are, and we are sick and tired of the corruption going on around us. Yes, corruption. Yes, you. Here's another quote by someone you might recognize, John F. Kennedy. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. It is time to choose, and I hope you choose life. Thank you.
Alan Boss will be followed by Katja Kohler.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Alan Boss. I live at 34168 Scott Road in Cottage Grove. And I'm going to try and keep mine very short because I think everybody else is already saying all the details over and over. I just came today to say I think 11,500 people who are asking to reach out and talk to the other 240,000 voters in our county should be able to do that. You seem to be constrained by some legal circumstances that I appreciate. I've been stuck in those circumstances myself. So I wish you luck as you find your way through it. But these 11,500 people should be heard. And if you've got a single administrative judge getting in the way, maybe it's time to have more conversations with that judge. And maybe we, the people, need to look at our administrative judges a little bit more carefully when we just allow them to show up on a ballot. So thank you very much for what you're trying to do for our county. And thank you, everybody here, for doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Boss. Katja Kohler, followed by Don Otterby.
Hello, I'm Katja Kohler, and I farm organically with my family on 7 acres in Cottage Grove. We live on 31272 Gowdyville Road. We live next to 500 acres of industrial forest, Weyerhaeuser. We've experienced drift from aerial sprays and volatilization of the chemicals. We had concerning health symptoms and plant damage. We lost crops and animals, goslings and ducklings. Some of them I still have in our freezer. We tried getting help from the Department of Agriculture and our legislators with Beyond Toxics. We tried through legislation to pass a bill that asked for minimal changes. Notification, we wanted to know what it was that they sprayed, and buffers, although their buffers aren't enough. These chemicals drift and volatilize miles away from where they're sprayed. Many studies show this. However, legislators didn't listen to us. We begged and pleaded with legislators in Salem at the Capitol. Members from Beyond Toxics from all over the state came too. Interestingly, I met many other people that had also experienced drift and had similar symptoms with their families, children with bloody noses, allergies, and similar plant damage. Aerial spraying is not safe. The chemicals have not been tested properly. They're not tested for synergistic effects. They're not tested to be mixed in with 5 different chemicals the way the helicopters do before they spray them. Long-term exposure, they're not tested for long-term exposure. And the effects on microbial life. Microbial life is so essential for an organic farmer. The protozoa, the nematodes, bacteria, all of that is essential for growing nutrient-dense food. We need that alive, and herbicides and pesticides kill that in our soil and in us. The legislators didn't listen to us, so many of us decided here in Lane County to draft our own charter amendment and pass it through the ballot initiative process. This is our democratic right. I helped draft the aerial spray ban, and I'm one of the chief petitioners. Everything in the language of our charter amendment is related to each other, so our aerial spray ban complies with the Separate Vote Act, which, by the way, has never been applied to county charter amendments. And it's curious that all of a sudden now our county council is deciding to use that law on our charter amendment. It is my understanding that it is only used on state constitutional amendments. I not only helped draft the aerial spray ban, I also collected signatures for 2 years. I spoke with thousands of people, and they want it on the ballot. We collected signatures in Cottage Grove, Eugene, Florence, Springfield, Marcola, Oak Ridge, all over Lane County. I also heard many stories from other people about their aerial drift experiences. I heard from hunters that see sickly deer more often now, with fur, losing fur, and wonder if it has to do with spraying. I heard from mothers that have children with lowered immune systems and allergies, and heard from people about high rates of cancer out in the country. Your constituents want this initiative on the ballot. This is what democracy is about. It is your job to ensure that our initiative makes it on the ballot.
Thank you, Ms. Kohler.
Thank you.
Next is Lon Otterby, who will be followed by Lonnie Douglas.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair Farr and Commissioners. I'm Lon Otterby. I'm from up on Marcola Road on the river in Councilor Williams' district. But today I speak to you on behalf of the Sierra Club of Lane, Coos, and Douglas counties. About 3,300 members, 2,000 of which live in Lane County. We really appreciate the administrators inviting council and the clerk to be here today on this unusual hearing, and appreciate that. Having said that, though, I find Steve's explanation lacking a little bit. There was no explanation of how it violated the charter amendment provisions. And I found your question, Chair Farr, to council that he couldn't answer on what you could have done earlier. I can answer it for you. You should have been asking these questions back in March when the decision was made, and you didn't, apparently. And that's important to give these folks who are putting together this request to you to take care of the health of our county, to take care of our school children who are actually being sprayed in school grounds. You need to take action. And you can avoid a lot of these problems by enacting an ordinance yourselves, if it's that important to you. And it's something to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Otterby. Next signed up is Lonnie Douglas, who will be followed by Richard Ross.
All right, gentlemen. Not a sign. This is an award for our county commissioners.
Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm sorry. Lonnie Douglas. I live in 120 Springfield on F Street. So I'm with the Eugene Springfield Solidarity Network, and every year we have a annual holiday party, and every year we take nominations and we vote on our Scrooge of the Year award. And you gentlemen have won the 2017 Scrooge of the Year award. So the Scrooge of the Year award is basically for the worst bad apple in Lane County. Your county administrator was a very close, actually third place. You weren't second, but the reason that you're getting this is because as county commissioners, you've tried to insert yourself into our voice, into the political process, the initiative process.
Mr. Douglas, that is a sign. Please set it down by the podium.
Well, I'm hoping that you guys will actually take it.
Go ahead. That's fine.
Okay.
Take it, but I'll add 30 seconds onto your comment. Go ahead. Okay,
thank you. So, you tried to insert yourself into the initiative process on this herbicide ban. The behavior that you showed during the recent Lane County strike toward our county workers, is another reason that you were that you got a lot of votes for this. What ESSN is doing in 2018 is an accountability campaign. When you had your lawyer up here and the nice lady that was with him, what I heard was you coming up with legal reasons why you weren't accountable, why you were not taking responsibility. As a prior serviceman, you should know at the top, you're responsible for everything and everyone that, whatever people do below you, right? This initiative for the herbicide, there shouldn't be an initiative. These people are spraying toxic poison in our forests. I'm a hunter. I'm a fisher. I like to fish. I like to hunt. I am a bull moose Republican. I am not a liberal. I am a conservative. And the fact that the fish that I eat or the deer that I might eat are full of toxic chemicals, or that my nephews might eat are full of toxic chemicals, Lon said it, you could ban this stuff. And what you say is, well, it's preempted. Your job as leaders then is to do that and then pick that fight with the state. That's your job. You were willing to pick a fight with the state when they passed the minimum wage. You were talking about going ahead and filing a lawsuit against the state about that. But why is it that you won't file a lawsuit and fight on our behalf when it's something that's killing us? Accountability isn't just about what you do, it's about what you don't do.
You have a few more seconds.
Okay. So anyway, this year I hope you guys will put it up somewhere. We have a hard time getting people to actually accept the award, but if one of you want to accept it.
Would we place that into the record of testimony? Thank you.
Where should I?
Just right next to the table there. Thank you very much.
No, right over here.
Let's place that into record. Thank you. Next signed up is Richard Groves, who will be followed by Charlotte Anthony.
I realize you guys are thinking that.
Would you please state your name and address to the
Richard Groves, sorry, 92349 Deadwood Creek Road.
Thank you.
I know you guys are thinking about your jurisdiction and what are the bounds of your jurisdiction and your responsibility here. To a lot of these are the big things that people are talking about this morning. People are happy to have a voice, you know, to be able to vote and exercise our privileges as we are deemed blessed in this country. But why is there this trend? Why are people throwing out words like corruption and so on? Well, maybe we could go back a year plus, summer of 2016, and remember for a minute that it was, in fact, this board that suggested that we, or rather that you, completely overhaul the initiative system and empower ourselves with determination over what is, and here's the key term, not of county concern. What are we saying here? What are these people speaking of? Is it not of county concern? But this was a point of leverage for you guys because you didn't like something, because it didn't suit your suitors, to step up and assume the rights of these people, of us, the rights of the people to make a determination what can be on the ballot for our consideration, for all the people's consideration to vote on. I'd like to know, I'd like to speak to each of you and know what your concern is, your real concern and your genuine belief in that concept. I think at least a part of what's going on is simple confusion, maybe some naivete, mostly some disinterest in this subject matter, which I think leads to some of the people's conspiracy accusations because not only the original concept of taking over things of not of county concern, but also of our rights to pursue the ballot. Unfortunately, my representative is not here, but I'm going to quote a email that he sent one of our folks and then respond to that. Again, this is Jay Bozovich. Again, I'm not an attorney, but the third-party lawsuit claims the county failed to apply to the initiative as required, and the presiding judge agreed and ordered the review of the initiative under this provision of statute, and it was found to have more than one issue contained in a single vote.
You've exceeded the 3 minutes at this point. You can submit any written testimony that you wish to submit. Thank you. The next person signed up is Charlotte Anthony.
I think there's a...
will be followed by Robin Bloomgarden.
...with your counsel.
Thank you.
Could be the problem.
I'm Charlotte Anthony. I'm here by virtue of helping Lane County initiate more than 650 gardens in between 2008 and 2013. And I'm actually not living here, but I feel a very important contribution. There is a way to grow forests that does not require herbicides that would make much more productive forests than what are currently being done. I will submit this information. There's currently 5 consultancies for farmers, for industrial agriculture, that they are successfully changing over to biological farming. The biological farming is with the microbes that herbicides are killing. And again, we all know. So the one piece that I have that most of you don't know, the United States has some of the largest problems with cancer, Alzheimer's, many other things. And how food provides nutrients to us is with the microbe partners in the food, that there's layers that are not feeding us if we don't have our microbe partners. So not only does the herbicide kill us, but but we're not getting the food that we need. And so our brains, our bodies are not giving us what we need. This is a place we all agree, we all need to understand, because it's affecting not just, as people say, the hippy dippies, but everyone. And like I said, industrial ag is learning that they can grow food without herbicides, and supporting microbes. So that's pretty much what I have to contribute.
Thank you very much. Next is Robin Bloomgarden. And before I begin the timer, Ms. Bloomgarden, I'd like to mention that I hope you all stay around. Subsequent to this, we have an important work session on Metropolitan Wastewater Commission, which is the earlier gentleman talked about pooping. We'll be talking about where that goes after this meeting. So after the testimony this morning. As of right now, if we continue at 3 minutes per person, we'll be pushing 11:30. So if you can take your own prerogative. It's been pointed out to me that I can limit the time that we that we have for a speech this morning. I'm not going to do that. We're going to hear testimony until you finish. But please pay attention to the timer and continue with your speech. Thank you very much. Ms. Bloomgarden, please state your name and address.
I would just say that you guys are being paid to be here anyway, and we are missing work. So thank you for that. Robin Bloomgarden. I live at 1472 McKinley Street in Eugene, and I'm in Gary Williams District. We have never met yet. 4 of the Lane County Commissioners, in collusion with their timber industry buddies, from day one have repeatedly worked to impede and block Community Rights Lane County's initiative petitions from seeing the light of day. Twice we have won against you in court and continue to gather our signatures in preparation for qualifying for the ballot in the usual manner guaranteed to us by the Oregon Constitution. Now, We are going to court again because Lane County is not providing good faith administrative support for the people's lawmaking power. Your complete lack of democratic process, transparency, and accountability with regard to your reasons for denying our initiatives access to the ballot are very troubling and should cause alarm within the general public. Whom exactly do you work for? It becomes more apparent every day that it's not the ordinary tax-paying citizens of Lane County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bloomgarden. Next person signed up was David Piccioni, who has already testified. We'll be skipping David Piccioni, unless there's a second David Piccioni in the audience. No. Nancy Miller will be followed by John Sundquist.
Well, I had a little prepared speech, but everybody said everything. So I just really want to support all of the citizens of Lane County to stand up for their rights in this matter, and to and ask you to please listen to us, because you've heard a lot of compassionate testimony here. You can see we're suffering with this. This is not a healthy thing for our community, and we need to stop it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. John Sundquist is the next person signed up, who will be followed by Deborah McGee. Mr. Sundquist? Then we'll move to Deborah McGee, who will be followed by Patricia Hine.
Good morning. My name is Deborah McGee. I've lived for 33 years at 29755 Lusk Road in the county. Something's happening here. What it is perfectly clear. And what appears to be the case is you have the people in your face. You white men sit there protecting profits and greed, when I'm sure you know this is not what we need. Helicopters spraying poison from high overhead gives people cancer, sickens their lives. Instead of clean, fine water and healthy air, to live without being poisoned, you know that is fair. Yet there you sit in the people's way of a ballot measure where we have the say. The people do have the say. We have the right to protect ourselves. For our children, you know we will fight. You were elected to listen, to represent, and to serve. But big money profits over people, that hits our last nerve. You have enabled terrible things in our name, but we are organizing and things won't be the same. We will work together. We will vote you out. The good old boys will lose their clout. Stay your course, but your actions will have a price. We see through you, and what we see is not nice. Our democracy gives people the power. Soon is our time, soon is our hour. So do what you do and say whatever you say, but we aren't giving up. We the people, we will be free from aerial spray.
Well done. Patricia Hine, followed by Wesley Lochman.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Patricia Hine. I live at 29755 Lusk Road out in southwest Eugene. And Commissioner Williams is also my commissioner, oddly, from the Marcola people up in northeast area. Strange that I would be in that district when I was in Pete's district for so many years. But I am here for the Eugene Springfield Solidarity Network, who brings you some more tidings for the holiday. Unfortunately, it reflects a general lack of confidence in our county governors, and we are here about the aerial spray initiative as well. Hum along if you know it. You've been lying to us, sold us out. We've lost our trust and we've lost your clout. Now we're going to get rid of you. We've keeping a list of your every deed, of all of your lies and all of that greed. Now we're going to get rid of you. We know that you're dishonest. We know that you are cruel. We know that you don't care at all. And we know that you're a tool. Oh, we've been lying to us. You've sold us out. You've lost our trust. Now you've lost your clout. Now we're going to get rid of you. Now we're going to get rid of you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Today's my last day as the chair, and typically, I might have said, cut the singing, but I appreciate the talent. Thank you. I cannot carry a tune myself. Next, then, Mr. Lockman, followed by Marjorie House.
I'm Wesley Lockman. I live at 1567 Barber Drive in South Eugene. My sense is that we're in a crisis in our country. It's a crisis of human decency. You look at the White House or the Congress, where's the human decency? Where's the statesmanship where you are interested in the other guy's opinion and try to put it together into something for the people? Or in our relationship between men and women in our country, we're in a crisis of decency. We just, it's all being turned up. So my appeal to you is you look like pretty decent guys. You stand up to criticism pretty well. I'd like to see you guys just exhibit your human decency, your statesmanship in what you do about this issue. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Lockman. Next person signed up is Marjorie House, who will be followed by Luke Grossmiller.
Hello, my name is Marjorie House, 34772 Kaiser Creek Road in Cottage Grove. I own and operate an certified organic apple farm. Majority of my apples go to the South Lane School District. I also grow greens for 3 of the restaurants in Cottage Grove. And I grow seed for Territorial Seed Company. I'm here to advocate for my community. My farm is fairly isolated, so I'm surrounded by Weyerhaeuser. I'm constantly seeing helicopters spraying this or that right now. In the last 7 days, they've been dumping nitrate fertilizers, which goes into my irrigation water. The funny thing about these herbicides, the phosphates from this, glyphosates, cause cancer. Nitrates cause cancer. And they cause a risk to my livelihood if I lost my certification because of these things. And the really funny thing about these herbicides, they're spraying for Scotch broom, which is a nitrogen fixer. It's a legume. It's actually a perfect nurse plant for fir trees. It fixes nitrogen, it prevents erosion. It's an absolutely perfect nurse plant because once the trees get big enough, the Scotch broom dies. So there's really no reason for them to be doing this. That's Mother Nature's way of healing the land, is with these legumes. So I'm here to advocate for my community, for the children that eat my apples, the people that eat in the restaurants that I grow salad greens for. And I would ask that you just help this get on the ballot so that we can all vote it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. House. Next is Luke Grossmiller, who will be followed by John Bayuser, and I will need help with that pronunciation.
Hi, I'm Luke Grossmiller. I recently moved to 1897 Garfield Street, Eugene. Really grateful that Steve Dingle and the clerk came today and are continuing to stay in the room and listen to these testimonies. Thank you very much. I look forward to future communication between the county and the group promoting aerial herbicide spray ban. I hope we can work it out together, and it means a lot to me that you're here today listening to the people. I know you have a limited authority to really address these issues, but you being here does mean a lot. I don't want to say anything that other people have said. There's one piece that I care about, and that's the long-term sustainability of our forests and the industrial timber kind of paradigm we're living in. I question if that's really going to work in the future or if we're depleting our forest resources. I see the spray as one of those concerning damaging influences on our forests, and I have heard there are other ways. Also, in collecting signatures, I've talked to loggers who are against the spray, but they feel afraid to speak up. So I know that you have a limited authority to address this, but please listen and let's put our heads together and find something that really works for Lane County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grossmiller. Next is John Bayless, perhaps. John Bayless. I'm not going to get corrected on my pronunciation. Darn. Then next is James Barber, who will be followed by James Nevy.
Morning, Commissioners. James Barber, District 5, and candidate for County Commissioner in the East Lane County. This is about the separate vote requirement, and the initiative institutes the aerial spray ban and who's subject to the ban. I can't recall ever having a vote on something and then a separate vote to decide who it's going to cover. So I guess I'm confused as to why it was determined that this violates the separate vote requirement. Not surprising for a lay person to be confused, but I understand this information also wasn't shared with the petitioners either. If this determines future precedent, this means the initiative that's gathered thousands of signatures will be shut down with no explanation as to what council's opinion is as to what violated the separate vote requirement. And I presume that without challenge, the petitioners would be left to restructure their proposals with no guidance, and then through trial and error, submit petitions, gather signatures in hopes it will pass the requirement, and repeat this cycle until they happen to get it right. In my mind, the separate vote requirement is something that should happen before the signature gathering effort, with guidance to the petitioners to properly draft the proposal that meets the requirements, or after a public election, at which time the commissioners can use the election results to determine if county resources should be utilized to correct the language of the proposal so the will of the people is not undermined. This current method pits the people against government as if the government is strictly a gatekeeper to the people from interfering in their process. This is a government of, by, and for the people. Let's make sure our processes reflect that. It's my hope that our commissioners won't just shrug their shoulders as if their hands are tied here. It's my hope that we'll see proactive efforts from our commissioners to protect the citizens' initiative process. Beyond that, Lonnie was 100% correct. Why has this been put on the people to stop the spraying of herbicides that are literally killing us and poisoning our environment? Why aren't our commissioners standing up for us? There's a meme on Facebook that I found very telling. It says, we literally live in an era where if you don't take the time to routinely call, email, or stand before your elected officials, you risk losing health care, internet services, tax refunds, basic needs, and we'll say clean air and water. This isn't a democracy, it's a hostage situation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Next signed up is James Nevy, followed by Loretta Huber. I'm sorry, Loretta Houston, but James Nevy is James. I see not. Oh, thank you. I probably got your name all wrong, so I apologize for that. New, thank you.
Just feeding the meter. Good timing. My name is Jim New. I live in Ward 7. Have to catch my breath. According to eWeb spokesperson Joe Harwood, eWeb drinking water from the Mackenzie River has a very high water quality because of its source, the Mackenzie River watershed. The rivers, their water, and the watersheds of those rivers, crickets.
On cue, right?
Are what we love best about Eugene, Lane County, and Oregon. Aerial herbicide and pesticide spraying is threatening the quality of the drinking water for Eugene and the watersheds of not only the Mackenzie River, but others in the county and state. More than 11,500 valid signatures have been collected for the Freedom from Aerial Spraying of Herbicides Bill of Rights to clear the separate vote requirement. A decision on this by the Judge Rasmussen is scheduled to be litigated in February 2nd. However, most importantly, there appears to be speculation the county commissioners are prematurely disqualifying the measure without explanation to the chief petitioners. Why else would all these people be here asking the same questions? The Center for Disease Control now bans 7 words from their federal reports to Congress. The new federal administration has censored websites and verbiage about global warming, and the EPA has removed its website any reference to climate change. I hope we do not have to add Lane County commissioners to the list of governmental organizations that are covertly changing the rules of the Constitution and ignoring the voices of their constituents. I also hope you are not attempting to silence our democratic process by using your elected seat to benefit the timber industry at the expense of our drinking water while jeopardizing the public's health. As government trustees, you have a fiduciary obligation to protect the assets of the trust from contaminating damage. The public trust doctrine of the Constitution states governments are responsible for protecting current and future generations from natural resource damage. Aerial spraying of herbicides and pesticides in drinking water source watersheds is a prime example. Your perceived actions to deny the process to vote for a ban on aerial herbicidal spraying would make you complicit in knowingly violating the public trust doctrine of the Constitution. Would you be willing to make the right moral decision and publicly oppose aerial herbicide spraying in Lane County? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newt. Next is Loretta Houston,
Loretta Houston.
Loretta Houston, followed by Tim Wilson.
I'm Loretta Houston. I reside for 31 years at 75621 Mosby Creek Road down in Cottage Grove, Oregon. For 31 years, I have, for 10 years, I worked out there in the industrial forest, planting, reforesting thousands of acres within Lane County and elsewhere. At this time, we're seeing most of our forest, what was forest, is in the hands of industrial corporate hands. And to tell you the truth, I think instead of going in baby steps of fighting just to ban aerial sprays, we need to ban clear cuts, period. This is a very outdated paradigm. There's always the drum roll that we need more jobs. And we're finding and seeing that more and more in every industry that they're being automated, and there's just a handful of guys out there in the woods anymore. I live down Mosby Creek just before the gate, and it's all automated, and they are just racing to take everything from tiny little sticks to the biggest trees as fast as they can. The gates are locked, and we have to pay for every little scrap of information through the Oregon Department of Forestry just to find out what they are spraying and when they're spraying, and can't even get basic questions answered like how much have they taken and when are they going to stop. We are going through this laborious process which has taken us almost over 2.5 years to gather signatures while they are out there destroying our mother, our earth. You talk about rape, this is the greatest rape ever. She is a female. She provides life. This is Mother Earth, and we all are nourished by her, and if once we destroy her, we are all doomed. So we are all here with passionate voices, standing for our rights, standing for our planet, and we got to wake up. There are other ways to do things besides this old, outdated paradigm of extracted industries.
Thank you, Ms. Houston. Next is Tim Wilson, who will be followed by Kevin Matthews.
My name is Tim Wilson. I live at 34772 Kaiser Creek Road, Cottage Grove, and I'm impressed by the great wealth of knowledge and support that's everyone's exhibited here. I don't want to repeat anything that's been said. I just know that in the interest of the democracy that we have established here, that what has been all the work that's been done to put these ballot initiatives out should be recognized, that there should be no intervention or roadblocks presented by the county commissioners in the interest of any other special interests, business interests. we're talking about the health and well-being of all of our community members. And yes, there are state provisions that may present roadblocks to moving this forward. However, this is how grassroots movements start, and this is how change is actually affected. And please don't prevent that from happening, and you should be advocating for all of your county residents here in the health and their well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Next is Kevin Matthews, who will be followed by Becky Liston.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Kevin Matthews. Patty and I work to preserve the ancient endangered Occotequee horse at our farm on the Middle Fork in Dexter, and I'm a candidate for East Lane County Commissioner. The First Amendment of our Constitution is well known for protecting freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion. It also says, Congress shall make no law abridging the right of the people to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That inspired my software company in 1999 to create the Petition Online website, which went on to collect 93 million signatures on online petitions before it was sold to change.org. That's also why we're here today. There is, as people have outlined and detailed, an abject and deadly failure to fairly regulate chemical trespass. The immediate issue, however, is the right of the people to vote on an initiative that they have duly qualified to redress this grievance. Your county council has misrepresented his prerogative and your prerogative. County council is asserting a non-existent requirement. Having asserted a non-existent requirement, he has used it to make an arbitrary determination, not a required determination. And finally, he has not even attempted to explain, nor did he even acknowledge in his remarks this morning, that arbitrary determination or its basis, hiding rather behind the non-existent requirement. Again, as has been detailed in all the wonderful testimony from your communities here, we pay you to be in charge. When something is broken in Lane County, the county commissioners are responsible for fixing it. This is broken. This initiative deserves a vote on the May ballot. We insist that you fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Becky Liston, followed by Mark Robinowitz.
Hello, my name is Becky Lipton. I live in East Springfield. I am a physical therapist in the community and have worked in the area since about 1999. And I have had dozens, perhaps hundreds of patients that have had neurological and cancer maladies because of herbicide and pesticide overexposure. I have had a patient who was out on when she was young, out on a beautiful day in her convertible with the top down, and as she came over a hill, she received the spray of a roadside sprayer in Lane County and ended up not only ill for many, many months, but ultimately in a very short period of time starting to have allergies, food allergies, respiratory allergies, and skin allergies to, many, many things, and then ended up with cancers, again, very, very shortly after that spraying, and numerous, like over 10 different cancers in her body because of her exposure to whatever it was that was being sprayed on the vegetation near the roads to kill that. I've also had, so this is not a person that had metastatic cancer, which is one type of cancer that then spreads to different parts of the bodies. This person had over 10 different types of cancers in her body over years. I have had many, many patients who have ended up with other neurological problems. Many of those neurological problems were never really diagnosed because they don't really exist as a disease. I've had numerous patients who, when they were young, they helped to prepare Roundup formulas for spraying on the fields. They have told me that they literally mixed those Roundup formulas with their arms in the buckets because, of course, they were told that this was only going to affect plants and not animals or humans. They ended up with many neurological problems and cancers. And people that told me that they were hanging on the front of the tractors and the sprayers that the tractors were hauling while they were going through the fields and spraying Roundup on their crops. So they were getting, spray from that. And I don't know what, I think these were, they were kids at that time, and kids do all kinds of funny things like hang on the ends of, on the front of the tractors. So at any rate, Parkinsonian type diseases are also a result of overexposure to pesticides and herbicides. And I urge you, please, to take seriously the concerns of everybody that has been involved with this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liston. Next is Mark Robinowitz, followed by the final person signed up. I will, before I start the timer, Mr. Robinowitz, after the final person has testified, I will ask for any additional testimony. At this point, then, Mark Robinowitz, followed by Misty Frost.
I'm Mark Rabinowitz. I live off Lorraine Highway. I border industrial forest land whose manager decided to stop using aerial sprays. In 1963, Martin Luther King wrote in Letter from the Birmingham Jail, "We should never forget that everything Adolf Hitler did in Germany was legal, and everything the Hungarian freedom fighters did in Hungary was, quote, illegal. It was illegal to aid and comfort a Jew in Hitler's Germany. Even so, I am sure that had I lived in Germany at the time, I would have aided and comforted my Jewish brothers." It is astonishing that it is still legal to dump tons of poisons over our heads. Instead of micromanaging measures to outlaw this abuse, the county should be taking all possible steps to make this assault a felony, since our 18th century legal system does not recognize delayed causality. If the helicopters were firing bullets, the violence would be recognized for what it is. But if the copter is assaulting people with weapons that take years to kill, the legal system pretends that this is not what it is. If North Korea was flying these helicopters, spraying poisons, we might consider this an act of war. Yesterday, there was a tragic derailment of the Amtrak Cascades train in Washington on its very first revenue trip on a new route, killing and wounding. This morning, I read in the London Guardian that the train was apparently speeding 80 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. Why mention this? There are countless examples of assuming that technologies are infallible, that dangerous consequences can be mitigated despite obvious hazards. The combination of deforestation and defoliants is well understood to damage public health, and the aerial spraying of defoliants, perfected in Vietnam, has now impacted every corner of the county. The federal forest stopped this abuse 3 decades ago. The Siuslaw National Forest, in particular, has been able to function without dumping 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid, otherwise known as Agent Orange. Forestry can be done without using chemicals that cause cancer and birth defects, but this also requires shifting from clear-cut obliteration to selective forestry that maintains the canopy. There are a few examples of this in the county, but they're not done by Weyerhaeuser and their corporate friends. More jobs are created when there are value-added products. The value of the furniture industry in this state is less than the cost of the recent ramp addition to the Beltline I-5 interchange. Converting forests to tree farms reduces the long-term potential for forest product employment, just as happened in the Appalachians a century ago and in the Middle East 2,000 years ago, and they still haven't recovered from that with desertification. So we don't need poison to grow the best forests on the planet. Air grows on trees.
Thank you, Mr. Rabinowitz. And Misty Frost is the last person we have signed up. Ms. Frost?
Hi, good morning. Thank you. My name is Misty Frost, and I live at 1610 Doherty Avenue in Cottage Grove, Oregon. And I have lived in this community for about 25 years. I am currently an environmental justice community organizer for Lane County with the nonprofit Beyond Toxics. I speak on behalf of our membership of over 3,000 Oregonians. We have been working on aerial spray issue for many years. May I remind the board that the federal government ended their practice of aerial spray in 1985. Picture yourselves back in 1985, likely with some funny hairstyles and eyeliner. We live in a very different world now. Our lands and water are more contaminated. Our people are more sickened. I worry every day about the world my child, my daughter sitting over here, will live in. Yet Oregon state government refuses to listen to its people. For decades, Oregonians have written, spoken, marched, petitioned, and begged lawmakers to ban these highly toxic petrochemicals. We know the forestry logging companies have a lot of power. They claim they can't comply with Cleaner Air Oregon regulations or pay for the pollution they emit into our community, because if they did, it would result in job loss. This is the same excuse industry has been giving us since the Industrial Revolution. I was a paralegal for some years working for a local law firm that specialized in work injuries. I can tell you, case after case, horror story after horror story, the timber industry is not concerned with the health of our community or their employees. They only care about their profits. They are bullies, and they use scare tactics and intimidation to keep up business as usual. They use their power to corrupt our local elected officials and our state government. You tell us to behave and follow the rules. We have followed your rules. Your people demand that you listen. You are elected and supported by us. We demand that you take action on this issue immediately. It is time for a just revolution from an extractive economy to a green economy, a health of the people over the wealth of a few. The time is now. Thank you.
Thank you. In 1985, I was working for a tiny hardware store called Jerry's, and we had a pretty strict dress code. So I didn't even have this then. So, Misty Frost was the last person who signed up. At this point, I would like to invite anyone in the room who did not sign up, who wishes to provide testimony to the Board of County Commissioners, to step forward, and you'll be provided 3 minutes. Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you all for listening, being patient. I'm Justin Workman. I'm from Triangle Lake, 19204 Fish Creek Road, Blatchley, Oregon. My family was poisoned 6 years ago. My children coughed and vomited for 9 months after we were exposed to drift from aerial spray. 1986, there was a different commissioner sitting up here by the name of Peter DeFazio. And he listened to his constituents, and he wrote a letter to Tip O'Neill at that time, who was Speaker of the House in Washington, D.C. And he asked for a moratorium on 20 different pesticides that they were using in the Coast Range. 1986. They found that 78% of the elk meat tested had higher levels of pesticides than were allowed by the EPA. This is a Coast Range where I live. Something needs to happen. 1986, he was up here railing the federal government. Let's do something. I've talked to you, Pete. After a lawsuit in Salem, and I know your heart. And I hope all you guys will just listen to us and make this smooth and simple. I'm not here to rail on you guys. I need your help. So please just do it. Let's make this easy. Let's move into the future. Let's make this a better community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Any further testimony? Please, sir, step forward, state your name and address for the record. And I will allow two more items of testimony. Ma'am, this gentleman signaled first, so you'll be next. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Ray Kinney. I live in Deadwood, Oregon. I am an elected official on a Soil and Water Conservation District Board, and I also do some work for a watershed council out there. I'm concerned a lot with the water quality issues and toxic effects of the 85,000 new chemicals we put out into the environment, ostensibly to benefit our society. But that society is harmed in many ways by unintended consequences of this pollution. And a lot of the research done to determine whether or not there is harm done is controlled by industry, and industry affecting the politics in the country of the science. The science is what should guide public policy, and the science is stifled by industry and the big money for elected officials. And I realize you're under a lot of pressure from all of those externalized costs, both politically and economically, by the system. But we have to get back to a science-based assessment to guide our policies. And I don't think that has been done on the aerial herbicide spray issue and the high-risk Coast Range topography that causes drift onto other people's properties and other people's bodies and our children's health. Thank you. I do not represent the Soil and Water Conservation District Board in stating my private advocacy for water quality on this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Kinney. Can you spell your last name, please?
Kinney, Kinney.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Powell, and I live at 231 Cherry Court in Cottage Grove, Oregon. And I speak today from kind of the opposite, well, I wouldn't say opposite, but a different point of view. I am a Master of Divinity student at Portland Seminary with a concentration in Christian earthkeeping. And I also volunteer in Cottage Grove with the Cottage Grove Sustainability Team, which is a coalition of community volunteers working with the school district, South Lane School District. There's a moratorium that has been placed on the spraying of herbicides on our school grounds. And so we have a coalition of community volunteers, we have the school district, we have other civil agencies who are coming together to figure out a solution on how we can better manage our school grounds to increase not only the physical health in our community, but the spiritual health as well. And that's something that plays into this debate. I think is, a lot of our community suffers kind of from chronic anxiety. And that chronic anxiety can stem from the sense of there's an intersection of a lot of things in this debate, an imbalance of power. And so from a theological standpoint, which regardless of whether you believe as I do, I think there's a lot to be learned from the example of Jesus, and he was a great leader. And so when you're given a lot of authority and leadership, that also comes with great responsibility. In looking at his example, one of the things he said is you can't serve two masters. And really, God's vision is a vision of shalom, is a vision of the well-being of all of life. And so you can serve that vision, or you can serve the vision of empire, right? And I don't know your hearts. I don't know where you guys are coming from, but I ask you humbly to examine your hearts and ask yourself the question, which master do I want to serve? Do I want to serve this vision of shalom, increased well-being for our entire community, or the causes and do I want to serve empire? The thing that has struck me with Cottage Grove Volunteer is the realization that it is going to take all of us. It's going to take the organic farmers and the school district guys who are conventional blue-collar guys working together to make this vision happen. We literally can't do it unless we find a way to do it together. So
thank you, Ms. Powell.
Thank you.
Well, that is the last person who has stepped forward. Does anyone else want to speak? Okay, then I will close the public. Please step forward. State your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Rita Fiedler. I live at 3260 Bryceler here in Eugene. Laws are pretty sturdy things. I also think that they are meant to evolve, like life itself. I urge you, as so many before me have urged you, to do the right thing, and only each individual can only say what that is for themselves. So I'm not here to rail or criticize or judge any of you. I would just invite you to be creative with our laws, which doesn't mean to, it means to interact, which would mean to interact with them. And just because somebody somewhere said no, doesn't mean it has to always be such. Thank you.
Ms. Friedler, could you spell your last name, please?
Sure, that's F like fun, I-E-D like dog, L-E-R. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will close the public testimony section of the meeting and move along to item number 4, which is labeled Commissioner's Response to Public Comments and/or Other Issues and Remonstrances. We do ask for a 2-minute limit on this. However, that has never been upheld. So we'll have a discussion at this point in time. We do have plenty more business before the noon recess. Lots more business before the noon recess. I hope everybody stays around because we have some good stuff to talk about subsequent to this. Then Commissioner's response. Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, it's a great honor to be elected to be on the Lane County Board of Commissioners. I'm only speaking for myself, but it's a huge amount of work to talk to thousands of people, to get them to at least see their way toward filling in that circle next to my name. That's a huge amount of work, not only on the part of the candidate, but also on the part of the voter to listen to what the candidates are saying, and then if they agree, to vote for them. So I wouldn't be here without thousands of people taking the time to vote for me, and I'm really humbled by the responsibility to be one of the 5 commissioners and try to do the right thing in the job. I think everyone that's elected to public office brings with them a certain amount of experience, hopefully wisdom, hopefully some knowledge, but ultimately we're all kind of influenced by our own path, by our own education, by our own experiences in life. So I kind of see the issue here, maybe not through the lens of health or the lens of economics and protecting the vitality of businesses that make a living because of clean water or organic food. I don't see it through those lenses. I see it through the lens of a lawyer. And it seems to me that when you have conflicting objectives, such as the constitutional right of speech or assembly and a government that is supposed to uphold that right but doesn't want to hear the message, when you have that kind of conflict, you have to have a way to resolve it. Similarly, in Oregon, where we have this phenomenal right that doesn't exist in many states, doesn't exist in our federal government at all, and that is the right to recall your leaders and kick them out before there's another election, or the right to propose legislation. So that right to propose legislation seems to me to be something where the board needs to step up and be receptive to the proposal. Not that we're all going to endorse the proposal, but receptive to the idea that people have this right. And they have this right in our Constitution. And it's not something to be trifled with when nearly 12,000 people sign this petition and say, we want to vote on this. So again, I'm not looking at it from the political vantage point of which side I'm on, which side I'm not on, or whether it has to do with health, or whether it is an unwarranted intrusion on people's land rights. I'm looking at it in a really holistic way of why can't the Board of Commissioners, and we have lots of people that work for us. We have the county administrator, we have the county council, we have other people in the organization that work for the people of Lane County, but ultimately we're the ones that decide how is this going to go. And I thought one of the aspects of the testimony this morning was, well, what can we do in working with the advocates for this measure to try to get this on the ballot? What can we do? Could we sit down with them? Could we talk with them? Could we have the petitioners and the Board of Commissioners have a meeting? Could we have the lawyer for the petitioners and the lawyer for the opponents and the lawyer for the county have a meeting? Would that maybe bring some clarity to why Lane County doesn't have this on the ballot in May? That's 6 months from now. That's not a long time to prepare a campaign. I can tell you, I've had 7 major campaigns in my lifetime, and that's not a lot of time to get ready for a campaign, pro or con, on a measure. So it seems to me that we ought to do better in responding to petitions. When the board voted 4-1, and yes, I was the one, to say that there was no reason for the county to jump in and define what is or is not a matter of county concern. Let the petitioner define that, and then the voter can later decide whether that is or is something they want to legislate. Just like when we are sitting here legislating, we can decide whether we are for or against a particular measure. And if we find it's not a matter of county concern, we can speak against it and vote no. So to me, the citizen initiative is a hallmark of Oregon's Constitution. And it's something that when I was a congressional staffer, I think that was in the Pleistocene, I'm not sure. I don't know my geologic terms that well, but when I worked in the U.S. Congress as a 23-year-old legislative assistant, several of the members of Congress and staffers for those members from states that had initiatives said, why don't we start a federal constitutional amendment to have a federal initiative? Now, this shows the idealism of a 23-year-old. Of course we could do that. Maybe it would take 2-3 weeks, but we could do that. Well, that's never been passed. It's never been referred to the people of the states. It's never been in effect, and I doubt if it will be. But in those states that have it, let's respect it. Let's really honor it. And when nearly 12,000 people, I'm assuming, to get 11,500 valid signatures, it's going to take more than 11,500 people signing it. There's a lot of people in this community that have signed this, and let's be respectful, and let's try to figure out a way to get it on the ballot.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. I believe we still have some of those stone tablets on file from that legislation. Further discussion, Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to state that I do know where Marcola is. I had my mother's family, her brother, lived for a number of years in Marcola, as did my cousins and my aunts. I also had a number of family members that were farther up Windling and Mabel as well. So I'm quite familiar with the area and have extremely fond memories of bygone years of recreating and visiting with those folks. I was in Marcola not 2 weeks ago. So with that, I just wanted to set the record straight. Thank you.
Thank you. And further remonstrances or comments? Commissioner Lycan? Nothing? Then just a couple of things that I'm going to say, and it's nothing to do with your testimony today, other than thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. It's been a long morning, but I wanted to make certain that everybody who wished to speak was able to speak. The next item on our agenda is going to be a consent calendar. We have 7 items on the consent calendar. One of those items I'm going to mention, typically we don't talk about them. One of them is in making St. Vincent de Paul the sole source for providing overnight homeless parking in the urban transition zone within the urban growth boundary. That will be passed by consent. And a number of other items, including I mentioned that MWMC, we had a work session. I was mistaken. It's on our consent calendar. So at this point, then, any further discussion or any further response? Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the only response that I will give is, first of all, thank you for coming here. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm a longtime musician, so your poem, I wouldn't mind putting into music. So I appreciate that. The other thing, I'd like to, if Commissioner Sorensen, if you could refer the board order that we voted on, I'd appreciate it, because I'm not aware we voted on anything. So we did not vote on anything. All we did is we had a discussion about something that Commissioner Bozovich brought to us to take a look at. It was never voted on. Never once ever voted on. So there's been no vote on taking your rights away, folks. Not one single vote by this board. So I just want to let you know. And to Mr. Workman, your testimony was incredible. I want you to know that. And the one thing I will bring forth on this is I'm one person that actually stood up to Dow Chemical, and we banned the use of perchlorethylene in all dry cleaners throughout the United States. That will finally be complete ban by the year 2025. And you're talking to one person here, one individual from Oregon, along with about 3 others and from around the country, who looked at these chemical companies in the face and said, we're going to ban this because you know what? We developed alternatives. And now the garment care industry has alternatives. In fact, I was one of the leaders in making sure alternatives were put in place. So, Mr. Workman, I heard you extremely loud and clear, and I want to thank you for that. And I'm more than happy to sit down and talk to you about that because Congressman DeFazio is my neighbor. Known him for 30 years. And to me, your testimony was enormous, and I want to say thank you very much for that. To all that, by the way, visit our state legislators, I'm offended, and you should be too. Because you know what? If you could not get an audience with, and the last I checked, except for Representative Hayden, our delegation is of one party, and if you couldn't get an audience with them to see to it that you be listened to, you should be offended as hell, because I am too. And so, but Mr. Workman, you and I are going to talk about this, okay? You have my word. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. And, you know, I've got a lot to say, but I'm not going to burden you with it today. If you go upstairs to the county commissioner's office, you'll see my windows are open. You can tell when I'm there, knock on the window, I'll invite you in. My windows are always open, have been since I stepped into that office. Please do come by. A number of y'all in this room have been by my office, and I love it. It's a good opportunity to talk about things substantively rather than, back and forth with this thing in between us. So please do it. Then, Ms. Mokrahysky, any response? Then we'll move along to our consent calendar. We'll move along. Any emergency business today?
No.
Thank you very much. But then we'll move along to our consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine by the Board of Commissioners, will be enacted by a single motion in the form listed below. There'll be no separate discussion of the items other than I did deviate and I discussed one of them a little bit already. Now, that being said, if you want to see the items on the consent calendar, click on View Material on any one item, and you can see everything that the board will be considering with the next motion. So with that in mind, we have before us a consent calendar for December 19, 2017. Commissioner Lycan.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Williams. Discussion to the motion? I see none. Then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Bozievich excused absent. Thank you for being here this morning, and I'll see you January, I guess. Then we'll move along to County Council. Is there any excuse me, I'm sorry, item 7, Mr. Mokrahysky, is Public Works, which has been waiting patiently, thank you, I presume patiently. If I'm misleading the public by saying you were patient, let me know.
Other business I was taking care of.
Very good, thank you. We have before us then order number 174-12-1908 in the matter of authorizing sale of county-owned real property for $36,000 to Gloria Smith, former owner of record, map number 1812-2334-03-100, 2332 24th Street, Florence, Oregon. Then, Mr. Turk, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The matter before you is consideration of a sale back to the former owner of a record of a property that was foreclosed on for non-payment of property taxes this past September. The former owner is Gloria Smith, who lives out in Florence in Commissioner Bozievich district. She had contacted Commissioner Bozievich as well. She has come up with the funds to purchase the property. She's getting them through a mortgage broker. And, she's also going to be talking with a private attorney that was recommended by the Senior and Disabled Services, whom I've contacted and had her contact. So working with the mortgage broker, and this is the final approval. That the amount, just to be a little clarification, includes the woman was on the senior tax deferral program in which the state pays the property taxes if you qualify. She got off the program for various reasons in 2011. And statute requires that when a county forecloses on a property for property taxes, the county has to pay back the state the amount of money that they paid in taxes. So this amount for the payback, the $36,000, includes that amount. And that amount comes out of the non-segregated tax fund that A&T, assessment and taxation pays out for property taxes. And actually a month or so ago, the board actually approved, there were several other properties that the county had to pay back to the state where the board had already approved repaying them. So if there's any questions, that's...
Thank you. Questions or comments? Commissioner Lycan.
So, thank you, Jeff, for this. Obviously, this is a much better or much different situation than we undertook a couple weeks ago. Would you agree?
Yes, this is a little simpler.
Because I saw that the recommendation is option 1, which is to go ahead and sell back to the.
And I'm sorry, I didn't say it's provisional lane manual says the county will consider selling it back. It was the residence of the former owner, which this is.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. Any further discussion? Then we have before us, let's try that again. We have before us order 174-12-19-08. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm looking to see, because I think, did Diana send us a correction of the board order. Did I see that right? Was it this one? I'm looking for the email now.
Was it an email?
Here it is. So, oh no, this is Rainbow Water. Never mind. So this one's correct. Okay. Sorry about that. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of Order 174-12-19-08 in the matter of authorizing the sale of county-owned real property for $36,000 to Gloria Smith, former owner of record, map number 18-12-23-34-03-100, 2332 24th Street, Florence.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Williams. Discussion to the motion? I see no discussion. All those in favor, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bozievich excused.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Then we'll move down the agenda. And as I stated, MWMC was a consent calendar item. It's not a work session today. And staff was here for MWMC. So we'll move along to County Council. I see no presence of County Council. County Administration, Mr. Mokrzycki.
Just a couple items, Mr. Chair. I had mentioned last week that we were having the graduation of our first Emerging Leaders program, and we did that on Friday. And we graduated, there were 21 individuals that went through that program and graduated. 19 of them were able to be there on Friday at the graduation. It just was a great effort by all of those who participated, those employees that went through the program. Heard just wonderful feedback from everyone about the curriculum and the relationships that were built, their understanding of the skills and traits of strong leaders. And the group was talking a lot about how they can find a way to continue to come together and learn about leadership in the organization. So I want to just recognize and thank those 21 individuals for their participation, and particularly thank Erin Rollins in our HR department for the great work that she did running that effort. Secondly, just a plug for the State of the County. On Monday, January 8th at 9 a.m. here in Harris Hall, we will have our annual State of the County address that Commissioner Farr will lead us through, and look forward to that. And you may have more to say about that, but certainly invite any of our employees and members of the public that are available and interested in attending our State of the County on Monday, January 8th at 9 a.m. And then finally, I just want to thank you, Mr. Chair, as your the last meeting of the year, leading the board for your leadership. And from the staff perspective, I really appreciate all of your leadership and guidance and support over the past year as we've worked through some outstanding and sometimes really challenging issues. So thank you.
You know, you may want to rescind that when I tell you that my State of the County address is going to last a little over 2 hours. A lot happened this year.
So bring a pillow?
Okay, then we'll move along. Any response to county administration announcements? I see none. Then we'll move along to commissioners' business announcements. Any announcements from the commissioner? Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This past week, I believe it was Friday, Commissioner Lycan and Chair Farr and myself were at the jail for the annual jail inspection. And I had, over the summer, had the opportunity to do a tour of the jail, so this was pretty neat to have an opportunity to go back, and a lot of the things that I'd missed on my first go-around, I was more able to absorb some of the impacts. In short, the jail is very, very well run. The degree of compassion for those people that find themselves behind bars, the compassion shown by the staff at the jail is phenomenal, very, very impressive. On a personal note, I noted that one of the things that I thought about the first time I was through, but the second time, there was a chalkboard in a small room, which is a chapel. And from my personal perspective, a number of the people that find themselves in that situation are lacking in a lot of things in their life, lacking in self-confidence and guidance, work ethic, those types of things, but also their self-worth is damaged in many cases. And so by that, they use alcohol and drugs and other things to self-medicate to ease their pain. And for me, I was particularly pleased to see that in our jail, there is a place for God, and there is a place for people to seek that source as a source of healing and guidance. And that, particularly at this Christmas season, was very timely for me and very much appreciated. So I want to thank those folks that are in the service at the jail, doing the great work that they do in a very compassionate and humane way. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Further announcements? I see none. I'll just mention that that the testimony this morning was pretty interesting, and we went through the testimony after having heard Council's presentation regarding the board or the court order that we're operating under. I trust that to be an accurate and truthful statement that we are operating under a court order. So despite testimony to the contrary, we actually are under a court order at this point in time. And we listen to some things that are true, some things that aren't true. Some people embellish things. I do the same thing, most likely. But one lady suggested that living in Marcola, Commissioner Sorensen used to be her county commissioner. I don't think Marcola has ever been in the South Eugene District, so that was a little bit incorrect. So, but that just, as I said, that sometimes people say things that aren't exactly accurate based upon their understanding. Not that they're deliberately misleading, but things can be inaccurate. Commissioner Lyken, excuse me.
Mr. Chair, real quickly, and a part of this is because I got to spend a lot of time with county clerks around the state. I hope people understand how fortunate we are. We have one of the most highly respected county clerks in the entire state of Oregon with Cheryl Betchart. And if there's anybody who will put something together and it either is a yay or nay, you can take that to the bank. She's highly respected, not only from her peers, but just in the business itself. And it's unfortunate Cheryl's not here right now, and I get to work with her a little bit on the Board of Tax Appeals anyway. And but I hope folks understand we're very fortunate. I got to tell you, I've seen it. There's other clerks, maybe not in that capacity with Cheryl, but Cheryl is first rate, and you're probably not going to find a better clerk in the state of Oregon than our own Cheryl Betchart. And the respect from her peers absolutely proves that over and over again. I just want to make that comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Commissioner Lyken, when I asked Ms. Betchart if she wanted to be here this morning to listen to the testimony, she looked at me as if I was asking something stupid. She said, well, of course. So if you are listening, Cheryl, or we'll pass this along, thank you for being here for the entire testimony this morning. One last thing that I will actually mention, and that is that I mentioned I was at the memorial for Major Tom Egan yesterday, who passed away, who died, froze to death 8 years ago this week on the streets. And, Major Egan was suffering from substance issues. Potentially from mental health issues. I don't know. I don't believe that to be the case. I believe it's substance issues that really caused him to, in some of his latter years, to make some of the decisions that he made. Many people suffer from substance abuse issues, from alcoholism, drug use, other substance abuse issues. And here in Lane County, I'm really pleased and thrilled to make note that our major initiative currently for the Poverty and Homelessness Board is to add 600 residential units, beds for wet bed use, what is called wet bed use. That is to say, if people are using drugs, finding them a safe, secure, warm place to live, to stabilize their life and help them to make the decisions that potentially are going to help them to stop with the addictions that they suffer from. So wet bed housing is something that we're moving forward with. The first planned unit will be on MLK Boulevard. We still have a funding gap, and we're working on that. I have every confidence in my heart that we're moving forward with this 50-bed unit where this is a men-only unit, single men-only unit, where men will have an opportunity to to get safe respite from the pressures of living on the street, which can cause substance abuse issues. We're not going to say dry up, get dry, and then come live here. We're going to say come live here. That's the extent of it. So we're working hard on that. Thank you for everyone who's helping us move that ball uphill. So a couple of more items this morning. We do have a need for an executive session this morning. That concludes Commissioner Business. Any agenda team requests? I see none. Then we do have a need for an executive session. At the sound of the gavel, we'll be recessing from our regular board meeting and reconvening an executive session in the Board of County Commissioners conference room upstairs. The Board of County Commissioners will meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions and to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. This executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602E and H, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. We reserve the right to come back out into public session should the need arise. We'll reconvene in regular session at 1:30 in Harris Hall.